Hi, Susie Porter here, and I have a special guest today, Robin Andrews Smith. She is an aging and dementia life coach, and we're here today to talk about all things Dr. Joe Dispenza. I do mention him in a lot of my videos, and I've been working with Dr. Joe's stuff ever since like 4 years ago. I bought this book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Best book title ever. I was like, yeah, being myself is a little rough. So let's break that habit. And I think that was I the first person to tell you about Dr. Joe?
Yes, that's actually what I was just about to say. Thank you so much for having me, Susie. This is so incredibly meaningful for me because it was you that introduced me and the trajectory of my life because
That like two
I
years
found
ago,
that
1 year
work.
ago? How long
That
ago was
was
that?
March of 2022, 2 years this
How do
month.
you
Yeah.
have that in your head?
Yeah, because it was that
March
impactful.
14th. It was 3 o'clock. It was a windy afternoon. You told me about Dr. Joe.
Most things in life, I do not hold the detail, but that experience with you, for just where I was in my timeline in my journey as a human being, it was exactly what I needed, and for multiple reasons, which we'll talk about today.
That's right. I think we got started. We watched Dr. Joe's 12-day video course called The Formula. Right? And we watched it, and it's 45 minutes to an hour lesson, and then there's a meditation, and you do it for 12 days. And both of us have done it many times, right? Oh, a couple times. And it is life changing. And so, although I have never been to a Dr. Joe retreat, I have definitely done his meditations hundreds and hundreds of times. You, on the other hand, I wanted you to talk a little bit about your experience because you have gone to how many of his retreats now? You've went all over the world.
Yes, in 2 years, I've been to 5 retreats for me. Yes.
Wow.
It was helping me, so I went back.
So yeah,
Yes.
so what was it about Dr. Joe that what was it about the work, the teachings that really got to you?
Well, and I think I have to put this in context to what I keep calling my midlife breakthrough because, whatever, I'm 53 and we all hit a season in our life where we have to wake up to some new things. And so at the time in March of 2022, my beloved brother, who I call my Irish twin, we're 14 months apart, we were incredibly close, and he was about, let's see, yeah, he was 11 months into a pancreatic cancer diagnosis. And so for me personally, I was looking for anything and everything that would support him at the time. And so this crossed my path with you post beginning to learn about Dr. Joe and sharing it with my brother and exploring it. All July of 2022, I got diagnosed with cancer. And because I had been studying for a year and a half, everything in Western medicine, walking through this journey with my brother, what was so amazing is that as I had added that layer of this metaphysical piece, this quantum science study of how coherent, getting your body in a coherent state can
Okay, wait, I'm
also
gonna pause
add
you
to
right
your
there because I most people might not know what any of those last 2 or 3 sentences mean. So
Yes.
quantum, coherent, I kind of know
Mhm.
what they mean, but a lot of people might not know what that means. So
Yes.
your brother's dealing with cancer, and then you get a
Yes.
cancer diagnosis. So what was it? If there's anybody out there who has any kind of disease or problem or sickness, what was it about Dr. Joe that practically, in very simple words, Dr. Dr. Andrew Smith,
Yeah.
what was it about his teachings? Because I'll be honest, I read his book like 4 years ago, love it. Then I got the meditations, and honestly, the hour-long ones, I felt like it was just like an acid trip, and I really didn't have the context or the information to really integrate it into my life. I thought this guy's really onto something. I would watch his YouTube videos, but it wasn't until watching the formula and then really going deep, doing the formula like, I don't know, 5 times that I really understood all those fancy words like quantum and coherence. So what was it about the energy of it or the teaching of it that gave you the hope and that really excited you that about it? Because there's a lot of techniques and people out there teaching a lot of things. So what got you to go to 5 Dr. Joe retreats all over the world?
Well, again, like I said, I think you hit the nail on the head just now when you said hope. So at the time when we're at a stage 4 with my brother, and then I'm at a stage 2, the truth is I wasn't even focused on me because I could have my surgery and I was a 2A. And so I'm okay, but I'm listening to the testimonials of people who had been in the place my brother was. And I just kept thinking, these are facts, these are real stories. And so it gave me a level of hope. And that's why what initiated my interest as far as that goes. And to be able to layer that on when the Western model was not giving us hope around my brother's journey. I also think I would say, and this is a Dr. Joe share, and others are saying this too, but science has opened this door to 21st century mysticism. And I have always, even back in my 20s, when I would struggle with this or that, with theology and religion, although I'm a very religious person, I used to call myself a mystic. And so to hear this 21st century mystic, the other layer for me is my profession, because I've been working for 20 years in aging and dementia. And I've had a lot of questions for the man upstairs. What's going on with this tsunami? And so I study the brain. And this work is really about the study of the science of the body, but how we have known for thousands of centuries that miracles are possible. Spirituality and religion tell us that. Everybody knows somebody who had a miracle, or we've had stories. But Dr. Joe says in the 21st century, it's not enough to understand it. We have to know how to do it, right? Like, I get that miracles are possible, but how do I create a miracle for myself? So this was super intriguing and fascinating to me. And I will tell you that then my cancer was August of 2022. My brother did pass away in November. So now I've got a double healing thing going on. And now I've got to make sense of all of it for my soul, which is why I said I'm having a midlife breakthrough, because it was my turn to answer some of the hard questions. And this work gave me both the study of the hard questions, the science that, the world of quantum physics, is now sharing about in all kinds of places. And then it also gave me the physical place to be still and to relax into my body and
But just to be clear,
yeah.
you 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 also did this with medical treatment as well. You didn't just do Dr. Joe.
Well, I got my diagnosis and I had a surgery, and then
Right.
it paused from there. I was recommended to do chemo, but based on weighing all the facts for me, being in such an early stage, I preferred to try some alternative things and diet and other things I did. But the meditation, the data around meditation for healing so many things in the body, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and I'm just super intrigued by the science because I've been studying dementia and cognitive change for so many years. So the science of it is, I just geek out on it.
But
I
just to be
just love
clear,
it.
it can be both and for people. It's not like people have to, like, you did tons of research and you worked with doctors and you did, it's both and. It's not like,
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, I would never, everyone is super unique in their body, in their diagnosis, in their particular circumstances in life. So this is one healing modality to add to whatever your repertoire as a person and what's right for you.
mhm, mhm, mhm. So, how does it work? What is coherence? What is brain heart coherence? What does that mean? And how do you do it? What about the average person? Like, say someone says, "Oh, I don't even like to meditate. It's boring. I'm too nervous. I have ADD. I can't meditate." Could Dr. Joe's teachings and work help somebody like that?
Yeah, that I mean, before doing this work, the longest I would say, that I was really comfortable meditating, was like a half hour.
Mhm,
And did a lot over the last 10 years, with an app called Headspace. I
mhm,
would use Headspace a lot because, I was going through lots of things in my life, and that would just give me a quick 5 minutes to recenter. Through my Christian theology, I did a lot of contemplative meditations, but, there was music or there was a mantra or something to hang on to. And I always felt like for me that it was just more of my previous meditation experience was very much about surrender and allowing God to come in.
mhm.
What I experienced with this particular work that has been really helpful for me, I call it my fast track. I feel like I can get to I can get to that conscious contact with God much more quickly by understanding the science of how the body and the brain work, how to get myself into a relaxed state. And so that's a very complex thing that is in some of those books, but there's states of brain waves, and you have beta brain waves, and then, you know, um, theta and alpha and gamma. And so part of what helps the mind, ultimately the analytical mind, soften so we can be in the unconscious and make that conscious contact with God that some of us are seeking, we really do have to remember the body is your instrument. In order to get there, me, the soul, is having to utilize, the house I live in, so to speak. And so the biggest complaints about meditation is I can't get relaxed enough. The thoughts are coming in, and how do I get the thought to relax? And so, this is just an art. It's a practice. It's about sort of, learning a new muscle, a new skill. And so, from a historic standpoint, Joe talks about this in his books. His background had been in, um,
He's a
hold
chiropractor.
on.
Isn't he chiropractor?
Well, he was a chiropractor, but hold on, not meditation. Hold on, what is it?
He was Catholic Italian, wasn't he?
No, no, no. Hypnosis. Excuse me.
Okay.
We can edit that. So, Dr. Joe's background had been in hypnosis. And so hypnosis is all about the power of suggestion and enabling yourself to get your body in a state where you can rewire from the unconscious. So this is sort of really what I think you were trying to ask. As far as healing goes, yes, we have all of the things we do with food and diet and exercise and body work and whatever it is, acupuncture, medicines. And that's all working sort of with the conscious. But then we have all of this healing that goes on in the unconscious. And that more has to do, with our thinking and our feeling. And yet that crosses over with science because they can now prove that every time we have a feeling, those feelings are connected to hormones. Like we are a chemistry being. And we know, even with like the work of Dr. Peter Attia, who in his new book Outlive talks so much and so deeply, about this mind-body connection, which when science shows us that, we have more understanding, then we have more belief, and then we can move into those behaviors that really create that alignment. So
Okay,
back to
so
your
to
question,
me,
a coherent brain and a coherent heart, right? We're talking about alignment.
okay, but these words are very, I don't know if the average person knows what that means. So when you used
Mhm.
to just pray and do like the Richard Rohr contemplative prayer, because I grew up
Mhm.
in the Pentecostal church and then just went into metaphysics and Course in Miracles and all that. So I was meditating a lot. But the thing that I liked about Dr. Joe was he gives you a specific, like, do you listen to his meditations every day with his voice in your head for like an hour every single day?
I do because my body has become to just love the sensation and the experience, and it sets my heart up for the
So
day.
for people who've never listened to his meditations,
Mhm.
I just want to put it in the most simple terms. He literally he has incredible production value, beautiful metaphysical new age music soundtracks. and his meditations can be 15 minutes to like an hour and a half. And he really and he get and the thing I like about like there's a million to choose from, but some of my favorites, he gives you like 10 minutes of just that cool music and not him talking. So he'll talk you. The thing that really attracted me to Dr. Joe was he gives you like a technique, a system. So when Robin says brain and heart coherence, it means for me, like I was just kind of emotionally all over the place. And Dr. Joe's meditations in the formula, which I highly recommend, he gives you very specific exercises to do. Like mine was, I wanted to get rid of, I'm sick of feeling powerless. I'm sick of feeling like a victim. Because when you feel that identity, it becomes your life. It affects how you think, how you feel, how you act, what you let come into your life. So for you, with your cancer diagnosis, you had that biological thing and plus supporting your brother. For me, it was more the mental, emotional health and that at breaking the habit of being myself and becoming a new version of Susie Porter. And I have experienced so many miracles, but for me, I combine it. I'm never a one. I always have to, I study a lot of different stuff and I amalgamate it. Like if I get bored,
Mhm.
I get antsy and but what I love to do is like we would always get really excited. We're like, oh my God, Dr. Joe says this and Abraham Hicks said that and Jesus said that in the Course in Miracles. So it's not so much about religion because religion can be so dogmatic and so fear-based and so shameful. So I like that Dr. Joe is very sort of open in that you can be any religion and come and practice and do his practices. So I would ask, like, for people out there who don't know about Dr. Joe, um, uh, how can they best like get started? And when you say brain and heart coherence, what I think of that is just feeling very peaceful and that the things that you do align with how you feel and you feel whole and complete. And
Yeah, well, I think that's one part of it, but I really, when I say coherence, there's really, it can be measured. This is really a science thing. So, the body is so incredibly complex. And, you know, we ultimately are actually just a community of cells, if you really listen to the scientists. And all of these cells ultimately create tissues, and all these tissues ultimately create organs, and then the organs, work together, and that becomes, this temple, this body that we are. So inside of that, each of the systems in the body, and this kind of goes with some of the Eastern philosophies around, the energy centers of the body.
chakras,
When we're talking about brain and heart coherence, as stress, especially in the 21st century, at the rate of speed that we're all jumping around and trying to keep up and following, you know, the mental health, the stress hormones of anxiety and depression are so common that the system itself of all of these energies and literally body systems that deal with your gut, that deal with your procreation and your sexuality, that deal with your breathing and your lungs, your brain actually activating all of these, they have a physical component, right, that ultimately is backed by an energetic component. So I say that because the alignment, and why, when quantum physics was proven, and that's another phone call, but when we knew it to be true and it was accepted universally and we moved out of Newtonian physics, everything changed as far as our understanding of how we were energy first, and then energy informs matter, which makes the body. So that alignment that we're talking about, that brain and that heart coherence, that is when we are able to pause and slow down and settle those stress hormones, right? And now we've got harmony in the body. Like literally, you get back to a harmonious state. And I don't have to explain that to you. We know when we're in a place of peace and relaxation, you can feel the shift in your body. And sometimes we're running around and life does what it does, and we're trying to get back to that harmony, and everything we try just doesn't get us there. And so you know intuitively when it's all sort of flowing and you're in harmony and when you're not. So this is for me, I kind of call it my fast track, because if I'm off and I get in that and those waves reconnect, and then I'm not here to explain exactly how it works. I'm not a quantum physicist. I am so new to this work, and I, like you, Susie, I integrated into all kinds of other wonderful things that, have been in my life a long time, and always open to new things. I'm in the place in my world where, until I'm 5 years and that oncologist says you're cancer free, I feel like it's a layer of proactive meditation. But forget the cancer. I mean, everywhere we're looking, the fact is, the statistics show that the 21st century, our number one challenge is stress and duress. I mean, and it is the number one thing affecting everyone's health. Forget just cancer. We all have to find a way to counter this. So this is just one of my tools. Not to mention, I'm just in love with God. And when I have those higher elevated states of consciousness and I make that conscious contact, the chemistry that goes on in my body, I'm falling more in love with that feeling than the feelings I've been living with.
Okay, Robin, I'm going to bring you back down to earth. This is my dear sister, Robin. She goes woo, 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 and I do too. But for the average person listening out there, I'm curious because I'm right with you. I love, the God of my understanding. Call him the purple monkey dishwasher, as Coach Mitchell says. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Whatever it
Yeah.
is an energy, a feeling, a loving intelligence. Yeah. I mean, I love Jesus, but Christianity I have a hard time with. So don't let labels, anything that we say of a label, get in your way or, be a stumbling block. The God of your understanding. So I told you about Dr. Joe in March of 2022. And even though I've known you for, gosh, over 20 years, you've always
Yeah.
been a spiritual person who's prayed and meditated and done a lot of things. What's the biggest difference between, and we're going to keep this under a half an hour. We have 6 minutes left, 6.5 minutes. What do you think's the biggest difference between March 2022 and now, with doing all the Dr. Joe meditations and going to his retreats and really incorporating his work and his philosophy into your life? Is there something that's really changed? Because I can say what's changed for me, like a
Yeah,
lot
my
of
mental
things.
health, my mental health and my physical health. I mean, I've had a couple of really interesting scenarios in surveilling my cancer, through CT scans and ctDNA tests. And I actually had some positives. And then I took myself to a retreat and came back and got a negative. And then my doctor's like, I don't understand that. What are you doing? It's 99.9% that once you get a positive, they're going to find the cancer. Well, they still haven't found it. And now my tests are coming back negative. So I'm just throwing that in that bucket. There could be other things I'm doing too, contributing to that. So on one standpoint, I would say my physical health, I have really good data that I think this is a part of helping my physical health. But my mental health, as far as my understanding more, and allowing myself to really question, this thin space between a healthy body and at 53 also knowing, and because of my work, and the loss of my brother, we're all gonna die. People die. And this work is giving me a safe space
Our
to
bodies
explore
die.
that. Huh?
Our bodies die.
Well, yes, our bodies die, right? But,
Ego.
again, yes. And, the quantum physicists remind us that energy outlives matter. And so this is comforting to me as a person trying to make sense of my life and make sense of loss and stay connected to one of my best friends that ever was. This work gives me a platform for that. So I'm just enjoying it, and I feel, like a student, just like I am, with the Course in Miracles, and as I have been, with my Christian philosophies and such. So it supports me.
Mm. So, uh, it's not a cult, right? It's not,
No, it's really not a cult.
yeah, I know. I think it's funny because I love Dr. Joe, but to me, when I found him 4 years ago, I thought he's really masculine. And I know if you go to the retreat and you spend a week with him, you probably see his more tender side. But he is a bit for me masculine. I like more of like the Marianne Williamson or Richard Rohr or James Twyman. I like Ram Dass, the real feminine aspects. But with that said, I love Dr. Joe, but I just think that there's a lot there for people and everyone can get out. Robin and I get different things out of Dr. Joe. I have not gone to a week-long retreat yet. I want to in the future, but I just think we got 3 minutes left. And I would say, if you're a beginner, check out this book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And
And,
there's,
and I just want to say, Susie, for
oh,
people that are not readers, right? Some people love to read, but if reading's not your thing, I've got all the books and I read, a paragraph at a time. I can't sit down and read a dense
well,
book
you can
like
listen
that.
to it on audio or you can watch, there's so many Dr. Joe YouTubes. You can,
Well, and the two things that were the most helpful for me, there's a series called Rewired on Gaia
oh,
that explains the science behind it. And that for me, I'm just in a place in my life where I'm integrating this piece, especially because I work in aging and we know what happens to the body in time. And so I'm this study. So the Gaia series, there's no meditation in that. That's really just the science behind the meditation. And then being released next month is the documentary called Source. And so those are the two places I would start for people interested in the
sure. So
biology.
where can we see that?
Yes. I actually don't remember which. It'll be streamed. The debut is actually next week. Yeah. So it's
Where, do you
down.
know, on what platform?
Um, I don't know which platform it's being streamed on, but I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. So Source is an hour-long documentary about all of the research going on. So
Are
Dr.
you in it?
Joe, no, I'm not in it, but
Oh,
I was in one of the research studies
to a
that
Power Ranger back in the 90s.
a performer.
In a
That's an
former life, she
that's
was an
another
actress and she
interview.
put on a beautiful pink costume.
Oh, yes, I used to do that.
Oh,
I
you're a
was. That was
professional.
fun.
Dr. Joe should put you in all his movies.
Well, this documentary is mostly about research about UC San Diego. I mean, there will be, the Inner Science is the nonprofit that is doing all the research about meditation, and it's just so wonderful. I mean, we've known for years that mindfulness matters, and so I think for people concerned, like, is this a cult or those kind of fears, I think the documentary will put that to rest. This is one of the most impressive things to me at the first retreat, which I really would love to share this, Susie. I remember looking around the room and, I hear people say, well, I'm not going to retreat. I'm not going to sit in a room with 1,500 people, like that was a thing. And yet we're at this intersection where the collective energy becomes very important.
Mm,
And so I remember looking around the room and it was one of the most diverse environments I have ever been in, ever it was the most diverse environment. There were about 1,500 people, and I was looking around every age, every color of skin, every religion. There were 62 countries
mm,
represented in the room. And I just was having an experience and a beautiful humility and vulnerability about wow, and it's very hard to put that to words.
mhm,
And then through the course of the week, as Joe takes us through this sort of philosophy, but then this initiation where then you just close your eyes and it's you and you. So this experience of being, you know, with a group of people who could find a nomenclature, a language to connect through. And then to also be able to close my eyes, meditate, and be in my world, my beliefs, my higher power, my source.
right. You can bring in whatever images you want. Like I bring it, whatever touches
Happens.
your
Yeah.
soul. Right.
There's no judgment. There's no, and everyone's being themselves.
Mhm.
And the common denominator is love. I mean, it is just about the energy of love and the energy of the heart which is scientific, they can
Right.
measure that now. So, for me, learning and then being able to bring that education, which if, when we did the formula together, it's like 30 minutes of education and then 30 minutes of meditation.
That's
So
wonderful.
this is the formula, because
Yeah.
if we don't understand what we're doing, you can't make something, this is not work for people that are dragged into it. There
Right.
has to be something in your
I
analytical
think for
mind that
people
has an
who are like,
interest or an intrigue.
yeah, people who are like science nerds or people who love scientific information, like I'm not a science nerd, but it is very cool to have that context because
Mhm.
everything that Dr. Joe teaches, quantum physics, all the things, Jesus Christ taught years ago, but I never knew that. And so I love putting together all the pieces of that puzzle. And so I want to wrap it up now because we're over a half an hour, but I would say for me, Dr. Joe brought a lot of fundamental, basic scientific support, and his website has so many meditations, and I highly recommend them. They're no matter what you're looking for. He even has them for children now, which is wonderful. And they're
Well, and I also highly recommend anyone who is dealing with a major health issue, if you explore a few YouTubes, and I would say don't explore first off meditations on YouTube with Dr. Joe. For somebody, the number one, pushback immediately is, wow, that sounds so weird. And it does sound weird. So until you understand why you would want to be listening to that, I recommend listening more to the YouTubes around what the science is and why,
or
where
if you
this
can
formula
afford
came
it, do the
from.
formula. It's like 250.
Yes, yes, to
And
do
you can
that, to
keep
do
it
the formula.
forever and you can do it over and over and over. That when he tells his story and he explains it, you understand why.
Yeah, these meditations are not, he would not recommend you do meditations without the knowledge behind why
Right.
you're doing what you're
Because
doing.
you'd be
It is
like,
not
I was
effective.
doing the water one 4 years ago, and I'm like, this is like a cool acid trip, but what do I do with it?
Right. It's not
So
effective,
in
and you
the
wouldn't have
formula, he
biology
takes you
change.
step by
Yeah.
step by step, gives you exercises to do. Like I don't want to be angry anymore. I want, and you imagine yourself. It's very much like creative visualization, manifestation techniques, Neville Goddard, Abraham Hicks. It's all the same. Law of attraction. It's all the same. I love Dr. Joe, but he doesn't have like people have been teaching this stuff forever. He just is super smart and charismatic and brilliant to package it so it's really caught on. He's really struck a nerve. So that's what excites me is that I amalgamate them all together, and he gives you a very clear path in that formula class, and a way for us to yeah, like when you say mind and heart coherence, that's everything, to be at peace. The peace that passes all understanding will rule in your heart today. Whether you get to it through scientific meditations, through Buddhism, through Christianity, we're all the same. We're all connected. The Course in Miracles says all minds are one. In quantum physics, we're all vibrating. And so Dr. Joe helps you raise your vibration, just like all those other things. So let's wrap it up. I'm just going to say Dr. Joe is awesome. And what would your final thought be for this over 30-minute video?
Wow, my final thought. I just think curiosity and open heart. I think, if we are set in our ways, then we might miss something that could be there for us. So, you know, um, I just like to keep learning personally. And then all of us know what's right for us.
Well, I'm so glad that I told you about Dr. Joe, and now you are like in the Dr. Joe world, and I'm so
Yes,
grateful because it's
yes.
helped you. And also, I will say on a personal note, okay, I'm gonna try to say this without crying. One of my other dearest and oldest friends told me like 2 or 3 years ago that the doctor told her she only had a year to live. And I hooked her up with a Dr. Joe person in Cleveland where they live. And she's still alive and she's doing very well and doing she wasn't even talk about it, the average person. She probably never meditated in her life. She's just my friend from childhood. And so this work can help anyone. And I'm just so grateful for it. And my other friend who I introduced the formula to, she had some kind of twisted valve, and through the meditation, it untwisted, and she didn't have to have
Mm.
surgery. So, yeah, miracles happen all.
Yeah.
It's just another way to help your body open up to the miracle of that you really are whole and healthy and all that stuff. But we just get that's a whole let's have a whole nother talk about that, about how we really are
Yeah.
great. So I didn't say that very well, but yeah, anything that helps us get back to that wholeness and that oneness, and that when you say mind and heart coherence, it's oneness, not only oneness with ourselves, but oneness with each other.
That's
That
exactly right. That's exactly right, Susie. And, you know, I love that story of your friend. And, I was one of those people that went to a retreat and had what I would define as a miracle experience in my body, which we can stay tuned for the future
stay
story.
tuned. At our next
Stay
talk,
tuned.
Robin Andrew
Yes.
Smith talks about the miracle experience she had in her body. Wow. But we really
And
got to
and
wrap it
and
up.
it was shocked me so much that again, it opened another door for me of belief and hope. And and that was because of others. That was because of the power of love that others directed toward me. And I'm not the same person because of it. So just like I wasn't the same person,
I know.
previous
Maybe,
to you recommending that and all of it, life is good. And I believe there is a source that is working on our behalf. So thanks for
okay.
having me, Susie.
Yeah, and maybe we should end with just saying to everybody, stay curious, stay open. There's a lot
Stay
of
up.
good stuff out there wanting to come in and love you and bless the boots off of you, but just stay curious. Stay curious. Who are these
Mhm.
crazy girls on YouTube or women, or I don't know, but I'm really curious. I'm going to look into it.
Yes,
All right. I
yes.
love you, Robin. Mwah.
I love you.
Bye, peoples.